Hey, I'm glad you're here. Have you eaten? Are you feeling a little bit peckish? Well, we have a Cinemorgasborg of an episode. What is a Cinemorgasborg? Surely you know what a Cinemorgasborg is. I've said it 3 times now, therefore normalizing the usage of the word Cinemorgasborg. All right, you got me. Fine. I made it up. I was trying to have a little fun, but fine. This episode is all about movies and food in movies. I wanted to do this for a while, and I found the perfect guest for this concept. What concept? Cinemorgasborg. Surely you remember that. See how normal it sounds now? Now you try it. Cinemorgasborg. Huh? All right, fine. But think about it. Mull it over, chew on it for a bit, get back to me. So let's just get right to it. This episode is a Cinemorgasborg. Our guest straddles the realms of movies and food, and this is VH Us. Hello and welcome to VHS, the podcast where every other episode is about a film and the guest has that profession or experience portrayed in the film. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and this being one of our special in-between episodes, we're cooking up something a little different. However, I'm not alone in the kitchen. I am joined by co-host and creator of Final Girls Feast and Geeks Who Eat. It's Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, first, will you tell people about Final Girls Feast?
So Final Girls Feast was started by me and my co-host, Carrie. We are both food content creators, and during the pandemic, we were bored, and so we decided to do a podcast about food in horror movies. And initially, it started out kind of jokingly. We're like, oh, this is going to last like maybe a year because, there aren't a ton of food horror movies. Like gastro horror is not a super heavy popular thing, especially right now. But we found that there are a lot of movies that happen to have food in them. And so we decided to start talking about those as well. So instead of just sticking with like the microwave massacres of the world, we started talking about Scream and The Shining. And believe it or not, a lot of these movies have a ton of food. And so, we've even had directors on who were like, oh, I don't know what you're going to find in my movie. There's not a lot of food. And then we talk for over an hour about it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot more that happens without it being part of the theme that you just see in movies. That's, kind of what we do there. And it's been a lot of fun, and we've been doing it since 2020, like I said, since the pandemic. And we are really we had a little bit of a hiatus this summer because real life, Carrie has kids and I just have my dogs, but we both, and I was doing a bunch of other stuff, like my Master Gardener program, which I'm almost done with. And so we just got busy, but we're back, and we're doing a new episode next week. And it's been a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And would you tell us a little bit about Geeks Who Eat?
So Geeks Who Eat is my my little passion project that I do with my husband. We started it back in 2015, and it has seen all sorts of ups and downs and changes. Initially, we did a lot of restaurant coverage, just trying to talk about accessibility and making restaurant dining accessible for our readers. And then, we found out that the market was super saturated in Phoenix with the food bloggers and all of that. And so we pivoted around, I think it was about 2017, to doing recipe creation full time. We were already doing a little bit here and there, just throwing a recipe up when it suited us. But we pivoted completely to recipes, and mostly even at that, pop culture recipes. So, we've done stuff for the menu. We just did one, back when Evil Dead Rise came out, we did linguine.
Oh, right.
And so, we try to keep up with that. The strikes have kind of put us on a hold because we're not doing anything that would be promoting movies
Right.
And we're trying to be careful with that because, you know, it's been kind of contentious whether or not talking about old stuff is okay. And for podcasts where you review, it's fine, but when you're creating a recipe, we kind of feel it walks the line, and we're not comfortable with that. So we have just kind of been on hold a little bit and doing, like, we did one for a film festival for them, and it had nothing to do with the movies. It was just a festival centric one. We did it for Chattanooga, and, you know, stuff like that. But we're hoping the strike resolves soon and we can get back to work, because we have a lot of ideas and a lot of things that we want to put out for everyone.
And where can people find Geeks Who Eat?
Geeks Who Eat is at twogeekswhoeat.com, or on social media we are Geeks Who Eat everywhere. Like, we are very much same thing. Final Girls Feast is finalgirlsfeast.com, and Final Girls Feast on socials. So easy to find us. We try not to confuse everybody.
Fantastic. And I think we first crossed paths on Twitter, I think, and we both have a shared love for food and movies. Obviously, I have a food business, and I have a movie podcast, so it makes sense that we bonded over these shared interests. So the way this episode will work is that we each have selected beverages and food from movies to create our own Cinemorgasborg. That's what I'm going with. It just rolls off the tongue, Cinemorgasborg. It sounds like something from the movie Society. We each will have 8 slots. We'll only make 7 selections, though, as there are 2 wildcard options, meaning that we can choose to put something in that spot or not, depending on how we want this feast to go for ourselves. You can choose a tiny bite to start, the amuse-bouche. Then we move into beverage, starter, super salad, main course, side, optional, wildcard beverage pairing, and lastly, of course, dessert. All personally selected by us from movies. But first, we will each pick a scene from a movie or a place, a destination, if you will, which is where our meals will be taking place. Sarah, what was your choice?
I am going to go with Hawthorne from The Menu, because that restaurant, everything that they did in that movie to me was absolutely immaculate and stunning. And that's where I kind of want to eat. Even if it's the most basic of food, I just kind of want to sit with that view.
Yeah, I agree. While I wasn't a huge fan of the movie Menu, I have a lot of friends who are chefs, and we love to go to their restaurants. We love to sit at the chef's counters. We love the restaurants that are destinations with like opulent views and things. That's a fantastic setting. That's perfect. I went with the Egyptian-themed restaurant from The Munsters from 2022. It's a movie all about love. I just listened to your guys' episode on that movie, and I rewatched the scene. I showed it to my daughter, who's 9, and, you know, there's black lights, there's mummies that are serving you, there's monster people. I was just like, you know what? This is the environment I want to have this meal in, so that's what I'm choosing for myself.
Perfect. I love that movie so much, by the way.
Same. And revisiting it in October was a real treat.
It is a
quite
perfect spooky date night movie.
I agree. Yeah. And like your episode talks about, it's a movie about love. And we don't get a lot of that. It's a sweet little monster love fest. And that's my jam. So, as the guest, Sarah, will you please start us? Did you choose to begin with an optional amuse-bouche?
Oh man, now you're telling me I have to pick between the amuse-bouche and a beverage, an optional beverage later.
Yeah.
Oh man. I think, you know what? I'm gonna hope that you don't pick my beverage, and I'm gonna go with the beverage later.
Okay.
Because I like that one better than I liked my amuse-bouches.
Perfect. I am also foregoing the amuse-bouche, meaning we're both picking an optional beverage later on in the meal to go with the sort of main course side situation, which means we move right on to the second choice, which is a beverage. What is your beverage to start off this wonderful cinema-inspired meal?
Well, now I want to make sure that I get my beverage. So I'm going to go with my I'm switching my optional beverage to my now beverage.
Oh, okay. I love this.
Because I wanted this one more. And I'm going to go with Noah's Manhattan from Fresh.
Okay. Yep.
Because Sebastian Stan's character makes her a Manhattan, which she also drinks in the bar, which is a very hipster bar. And this cocktail means a lot to me because we recreated a version of it on our website, because Fresh was one of my favorite movies when it came out last year.
It's really good.
Say last year. And so I'm gonna go with Noah's Manhattan. You know, it may have a little bit of a peach or nectarine flavor, but really I think that's just the chloroform.
Yeah, right.
So but that was what I went with.
And Manhattan, that's like it's whiskey, right?
Yes. My husband drinks man. I think it's actually, isn't it vermouth?
My wife does Manhattans as well, so I'm like,
I'm an old fashioned. When I'm drinking
yeah.
that, I drink more old fashions than I do Manhattans.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's rye. A Manhattan is. I'm looking on the Googles.
Yep.
It is whiskey, sweet vermouth, and bitters.
Ah, okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm a gin drinker myself, so the whiskey, I'm always like, my wife drinks it, and I'm always impressed by her selections of things, but it's just, there's something about it that's not my flavor profile, so I get them mixed up. But
For me, it's the heartburn.
yeah,
I
sure.
stick with gin typically as well, but that's because it doesn't give me as much heartburn as
Yeah.
whiskey. But I do love whiskey.
Perfect. Well, then you selected the best beverage to start off this meal, and highlighting the movie Fresh, which, if people haven't seen it, definitely see it. Could you boil that down to like a 60-second synopsis?
Meet cute meets Hannibal.
Perfect. Well done. Okay. Well, my first beverage is from 1941. It's an animated classic called Dumbo. And simply put, I'm taking champagne, but more importantly, I want to be Timothy Q. Mouse and have my own hot tub size glass of champagne that I fall into, and that's where I'll be dining the rest of my meal from this point forward. So
Is your champagne hot tub? So is this
yeah.
a brut or a prosecco, do we think?
Oh, brute. I don't want the sweet. Yeah. I like it dry, and you know what? Smaller bubbles the better. That's what I'm saying for my
I concur. I prefer a brut myself. But I will say that when we originally started Geek Suite, one of our favorite recipes we did was, we called it the teddy bear picnic, and you put
Oh, I
gummy
love it.
bears into
Oh,
your champagne,
nice.
and then you drink your champagne as is, and it doesn't really impact the flavor of the champagne,
Mhm.
but then you get to eat the booze soaked gummy bears at the end, and it's fantastic.
I love that. I've even had champagne flavored gummy bears before, and they weren't bad.
I have too.
Yeah.
We had them at our wedding.
Oh,
We
nice.
gave them. We did like little treat champagne, because we had a Gatsby / Supernatural themed wedding.
Fantastic.
So all of our little, like, we did little treat bowls, and they were all like champagne flavored. It was like gummy bears, nonpareils, and jelly beans.
Lovely. I love that. Also, Dumbo is a very funny movie to me. The first time we took our daughter to Disneyland, I had to put something on the iPad, because she wouldn't have Wi-Fi. So I said, I'll just put Dumbo on. We're going there. She's 5, seems like a good age. So she started and then get through, like, that movie is just sadness for most of it. 95% of that movie, I would say, is sad. And then she would shut it off before she got to the end. And then later on the trip, she started it again. And then she shut it off before she got to the end. The third time she watched it, so she had sat through Dumbo being taken from his mother, like all of this awful, sad stuff. And then finally my daughter just goes, oh, it can fly. And we were like, oh my God, you just were watching this sad movie for so long. And so that's what I always think of with Dumbo. But it's not what I'm taking. I'm taking a giant bathtub of champagne, which brings us to a starter. What is your selection to start off the meal?
I am going with a gateway horror classic. I'm going with the shrimp cocktail from Beetlejuice, because who does not love that scene? When I was doing my list, I was like, oh, I have another one that's more obscure that I could do. But I just had to go with the Beetlejuice. I had to go with the shrimp cocktail. Who doesn't? They had like the bowl this year at Spirit Halloween. They had like a shrimp cocktail, like trick or treat bowl.
Oh.
The hand would grab your hand if you put your hand in the bowl. And I almost bought it, but I didn't think that the shrimp cocktail looked shrimpy enough.
Yeah.
So I opted to not spend the money.
I love that. Yeah, when I showed my daughter Beetlejuice, she was like kind of in and out, not really that into it until, of course, that scene. And then she was like all in. And then at the end where Lydia's like floating and dancing, that's like the jam. So I think that's an excellent pick. Shrimp cocktail from Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Marvelous. This is actually the first dish I thought of for this meal. And man, whenever I think of movies that have food photography in them and they make things look so delicious that you just want to eat those, there isn't a movie that really got me as much as Little Forest from 2018. It's a beautiful drama from Korea about a girl reconnecting to her home through food. Very low stakes, very sweet, very adorable almost, based on a manga. And what I'm picking is the soup, which is tteokbokki, which is a spicy Korean rice cake. And it's often like a spicy stewed situation, can be as simple as just the rice cake, not to be confused with dry rice cakes we have in the States, and gochujang or gochugaru and like green onion, but you can also have it with fish cake. I don't usually eat the fish cake. And you can also get it optionally topped with mozzarella cheese, which is a choice. But I'm going to have it without the cheese, and I'm probably not going to eat the fish cake. I just love this thick, spicy, like gravy-like situation that comes with this rice cake dish. So that's what I'm starting off with. And I'm salivating right now just thinking about it. But and for anyone that's looking what this looks like, it's Tteokbokki, tteokbokki, and it is delicious. Everyone should eat it. So that brings us to our soup or salad course. I'm very excited to see if you're choosing a soup or a salad.
I went with the soup because that's what I could think of. And now I'm kind of torn because you're going with some stuff that is not horror, and I was very much like, oh, this all has to be horror. So
Yeah.
I was going through my list, but I think instead of the soup that I originally picked, I'm gonna go with the ramen from Ponyo.
Nice. Yeah.
Because
Yep.
that whole scene where Ponyo has ramen for the first time is so heartwarming and endearing. And I feel like we've all been in that place with like a food that we try for the first time and it's just magical. Like I remember the first time I tried Japanese curry.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That is now my comfort food. I
Same.
love it. It's
Yep.
my favorite thing. And so I can really like identify with Ponyo and her discovery of this ramen that the mom even like makes it magically. She puts the toppings on the plate and then puts the plate on top so that, you know, and I've seen how they do this like in real life. They basically, you freeze those toppings so they stick to the plate. And then when you put it on the hot ramen, the steam and stuff heats up the thin layer and then it falls basically into the ramen. And so it's just a really magical moment. And I love Studio Ghibli.
Same.
Or Studio Ghibli, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I tend to go with how Miyazaki pronounces it, and he says Ghibli.
Yeah.
So I will say Ghibli, but you can't go wrong with food from those films.
Yeah, you really can't. There's two ramen movies that I had initially thought of, and this is one of them, and I won't say what the other one was, but the only reason that I didn't pick them was because I had that first dish, and it was like, it was too close. So I was like, I can't do that back to back, but I'm glad it's on the list. Anytime you can talk about Ponyo is a good time for me. My daughter's always loved it. We even have the book, read her the stories. It's a magical thing. Any of the Studio Ghibli stuff, really. Huge part for our family. So I, however, was not going to do a soup. I'm going to go with a salad. I have three choices, but I think what I'm going to go with is my initial thought, and this was the first thing I thought of when I was doing this, before I had you in mind to be a guest, before this was going to be an actual real thing, and that is the salad from Slugs from 1988.
Oh my gosh.
It's the worst choice.
I totally forgot about that.
But I've had escargot, and I'm thinking a chopped up slug in a salad. It sounds terrible, but what if it's not? I don't know. It's hard to say, but when I first thought of doing this, where every course was going to be absolutely disgusting, I just thought about that salad. And then I had two options for my destination. So the second I chose the Egyptian cafe from Munsters, I knew I couldn't choose my other choices, which was the Anubis salad with Count Orlok or Uncle Gilbert and the seaweed salad. Both of those I thought would play well in the meal, but you know what? I got to get director Juan Pacon Simon's Slugs on the list. So,
what a fun movie.
Yeah, that's one that when I showed my wife, I was like, this might not work. But when she saw the little teeth, she was like, I'm in. This is good. I like this. Which brings us to the main. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're already at the main course, the main event, the heart of the meal. What did you choose for your main course?
I know this is going to come off as so predictable, but I went with the cheeseburger from the menu. I had to.
I had it on my list.
I'm in the restaurant. Like
Yeah.
I'm in Hawthorne. I
Mhm.
can't not have the cheeseburger. And I will tell you, after we saw the menu, we have a place here in Tempe, which was where I saw the screening of the menu, and it's called the Chuck Box. And it is this place that has been in Tempe for over 50 years. They do all of their burgers on a flat top. It's cash only.
Okay, this is old school.
Burgers and chicken sandwiches. Like, I don't think the menu has changed in 50 years. They might have added some stuff.
I love it.
But, you get burgers and fries, or like they have fried mushrooms and fried zucchini. But I got a cheeseburger after this movie, and I was like, I'm basically just Margot right now. I'm eating this cheeseburger, and it was heaven. And if you can find a place, like, there's nothing fancy about these burgers, by the way. Like, they are a burger that they serve to you on a paper plate. You go to the little buffet with all of the toppings.
Oh, a burger bar.
Yeah,
right.
It's literally do it yourself. All you go up and say is, I want bacon and cheese on this.
Perfect.
That's the only thing that they do behind the counter. And you watch them flame grill this burger, and it's perfect.
I actually prefer that to anything. Because, like, I don't know. I won't get controversial with these. Oh, you know what? Why not? I'll just say,
let's get controversial.
Okay, I'm not a mayonnaise person. That's what I'll say. And so many times when people are doing flavors on burgers, if they're like, it's a ghost chili burger, I'm like, yes, I want the spicy burger. And they're, can I get it without the mayo? And they're like, that's what has the ghost chili. And I'm like, why is that always the case? So a burger bar situation is perfect for me because I know what I'm ordering. I'm not going to be surprised with anything I don't want. And then I can just put on like the lettuce and the tomato or whatever it is that I want to put on there. Love the control.
I am pro mayonnaise, but I am anti Miracle Whip.
Yes,
and I'm picky.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm very picky, like at home, especially about my mayonnaise. I will only use Best Foods.
Yeah.
Like, or Hellmann's, which is the same brand, just depending on where you are in the country.
Yeah.
But that is the only mayonnaise I like. I will suffer through any other brand if I'm at somebody else's house. Like, I will never be rude.
Yeah.
I will have no mayonnaise in my house before I bring in another brand.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, are you anti-aioli as well then?
No, like I said, we have chef friends, so I'll try it, but it's just I'm just not crazy about the creamy situation in those food applications. I know it's strange, but it's just not something that I knew. That's not the mouth feel that I'm looking for with those types of things. I get why it's there in like every application, but I'm just like, yeah, it's just not my thing. So I don't usually go that route, but that's how our house is, and every time my father comes to visit, he brings his own mayonnaise. So it's like, all right. So we always do have
fair.
it. Yeah, Perfect. Well, excellent choice. I like how your meal's shaping up. This is probably my most obvious pick on the list, but it just had to be there. I had an option, wasn't crazy about it, but my main is gonna be the Soul Pizza from Nightmare on Elm Street 4, the Dream Master from 1988.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you think Soul tastes like?
I'm hoping pepperoni, because that's like really what I was when I was looking at the movie. I was like, I mean, this is gross, but if they taste like pepperoni, I won't care if they're screaming. It's a good flavor profile for me. It's in a scene, if people don't know, hopefully you do, but Alice is in a dream diner called the Crave Inn, and Freddy presents a pizza with screaming meatball faces on it. I just want to know what it tastes like. Seems like a good plan. And in Portland, we have a bar called Holy Ghost, and at Holy Ghost, on one side of the bar is a Szechuan restaurant called 28 Tigers, and on the other side of the bar is a pizza place called Electric Pizza Company. So you can order in that bar from those two places, and so we'll go get a drink and have Szechuan, like, noodles and, pot stickers, and they do the chicken that's fried in like a million peppers, and we'll get a pizza at the same time, and it's really heaven. And so I'm dragging this pizza crust through my tteokbokki, that spicy Korean paste. I'm getting it all on the crust. I'm really combining and mixing all of these things. So I am super stoked about this pizza situation. But now I'm dying to know, so you've got the cheeseburger. What are you picking for your side?
So originally I thought I was going to do something that was more traditional with that. but I'm going to go with boiled potatoes from the Old Dark House.
Okay.
The
All
the
right.
30s version with Boris Karloff.
It's been a minute. Can you tell me about these
So
boiled potatoes?
there's this big awkward dinner scene, and they're having this giant roast, and the old brother, he's like an old man, he's walking around offering people potatoes, and they are the most bland looking boiled potatoes. And he just like keeps interrupting people and saying like potato. And so when we did our episode on the Old Dark House on Final Girls Feast, we had Chris Dortch, who is
awesome.
the programmer for Chattanooga Film Festival, for those unaware. And all three of us were just dying over these potatoes. Like it kept coming up and we just kept laughing about it. And so I thought with a burger, it's not a French fry, but potatoes are potatoes. And just throw a little salt and vinegar. Like they do have malt vinegar in the movie, so you could throw some malt vinegar onto the potatoes if you want and flavor them up. But I just thought like I was like, oh, I'm gonna really pick one that's really old. Let's go.
Yeah, no, great pick. Also, did you know that the potato played a major role in Halloween this year?
I heard a little bit about it, but I wasn't quite sure what was going on.
Yeah, last year it was lemons, and this year people were putting one potato in the bowl when kids would ring the doorbell, and they say you can choose one piece of candy or potato, and kids would every time scream potato, and so parents were having to lug around giant sacks of potatoes because their kids kept choosing potato. Yeah.
So this was something that we discovered this year because we post up out on our driveway.
Nice.
We're a full-size candy bar house, so we just do full-size bars for everyone. And I saw so many parents walking with their kids dragging a wagon, and then the kids would dump their bags of candy into the wagon.
Nice.
So that the kids weren't having to schlep,
Yeah, it's a lot.
heavy candy. And I was like, gosh, kids have it good. In my day, we would walk miles with our 5-pound sack of candy.
Yeah. Also,
and hope that nobody tried to steal it.
Yeah. And also, I feel like the candy's not just like king size, which is great, bless your heart and all the people that do that, but like everything just seems like when I was a kid, I feel like one candy was like a peppermint or like maybe a Jolly Rancher, but everything was like super tiny. And now it's like really impressive candy,
I will say that I feel like people got the message that we didn't want the candy from grandma's purse anymore.
Yeah, no butterscotch.
Which kind of bums me out because I love those little goopy filled strawberries.
Yes, yeah, that wrapped in a strawberry wrapper.
Yeah, you can still get those at Swiss Colony, by the way, because I'm an old lady and I order a Swiss Colony sausage box every year.
I don't even know what that is, but it's on my horizons now. Swiss Colony sausage box?
It's kind of like the Hillshire Farms, like, sausage box.
Yeah.
But Swiss Colony is what my aunt used to send me when I was growing up, and she was an old lady. So now, at almost 40, I'm entering my old lady stage.
Love it.
And so I buy one for me and my husband every year. But it comes with the little strawberry goober candies.
Yeah. Oh.
So
that's perfect. Great. Well, I am also going with the potato. I just, once I had the pizza, I was like, what if I need something a little salty to snack on? So I'm choosing the French fries, the ultimate finger food from The Hitcher from 1986. C. Thomas Howell, Rutger Hauer, Jennifer Jason Leigh. It's a thriller about picking up the wrong person. And in one scene, C. Thomas Howell, sitting in a diner, reaches into his fries and finds a finger. So, it's a finger food. But I just thought it would be nice to have some salty French fries. I'm also going to be dipping those in the sauce from my starter. And so I got pizza and French fries. That's good comfort food for me.
Heck yeah. I almost chose French fries because I almost did French fries from Danny's discussion with, what's his name in The Shining? Scatman Crothers' character. Halloran.
Yeah.
He tells Halloran that his favorite food is French fries and ketchup.
Yeah.
And so I almost went with French fries myself, but I'm glad that I opted to go with boiled potatoes.
Yeah, well, we got the starch covered, for sure. Excellent. Well, I know we both chose the next wild card option of additional beverage, so I'm dying to know what your beverage is that was at the beginning and is now shifted to the back.
Well, I feel like every meal needs to end with a hallucinogen. So I'm going with the hallucinogenic floral lemonade from Midsummer.
Nice. Okay.
We did this recipe on our website. We called it the May Queen lemonade, but I think that lemonade in Midsummer is absolutely beautiful. The way that it's framed, all of the food in that movie was absolutely gorgeous. We did recipes for them for their home release for press drops. We ended up doing this lemonade, and then we did a Hargan meat pie. But when we were doing that, they sent us we actually got someone at A24 to send us photos. They went in and got screen caps for us of all the food.
Wow, that's so cool.
So, and that this a similar thing happened for us with the menu when we were recreating the recipes for the menu. And they sent us the PDF of the menu that they actually used in the film, which is interesting because that menu has an item that you never see happen in the movie.
Oh, wow. There's a course we don't see.
There is. So
That's cool.
I thought it was pretty cool. And I went with the lemonade. That was originally going to be at the start, but I think hallucinogens should go at the end.
Yeah, you want to remember some of the meal. Yeah,
exactly.
That makes sense. Perfect. Well, I went with a Vesper Martini, the variation on Bond's typical martini, which appeared in the 2006 film Casino Royale. But Ian Fleming, the author of the Bond novels, invented the Vesper Martini in 1953 in the novel of the same name. And I just think that's so rare and cool that the author invented a drink that's actually, you can get it in bars. It consists of 3 measures of gin, 1 measure of vodka, half measure of Lillet Blanc, and a lemon peel to garnish. So just straight booze. That's a martini. So I just think at that point I need a little break from my hot tub champagne. Maybe I'm starting to realize that I've been sitting in it the whole time. It's hard to say. But yeah, have myself a little martini.
So I'm gonna impress you here. The quote from the book is just a moment. 3 measures of Gordon's, 1 of vodka, half a measure of Kina Lillet. Shake it well until it's ice cold. Then add a large thin slice of lemon peel. Got it?
Wow.
I know this because we did a video on this on Geeks Who Eat because I am obsessed with Vespers. I love Vespers.
Yeah, it's really good.
They are so good. And when we did the recipe, we talked to a bartender here in town who's very well known. And he said the best, he very much says you shake a Vesper. Mm-hmm. And this is controversial because typically with a gin martini, you would stir. But the Vesper, because of the vodka, you shake it. And he says the trick is to shake it until you can't feel your hand because the shaker is so cold. Okay. So that is the key to a primo Vesper. And it's an unpopular opinion, but both my husband and I feel that if you get the little ice chips in it that end up diluting down, it's very helpful and it's delicious.
Okay. Pro ice chip.
Yeah. We are pro in a Vesper. In a normal martini, I'm 50-50. Because I drink a vodka martini anyway. Mm-hmm. But with a Vesper, you do want those little ice chips. But they're like the little tiniest thin slivers that they're not like, right. You don't want ice cubes in your Vesper. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying drink your Vesper on ice.
Yeah. It's like little thin shards almost.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like almost
they kind of just melt on your tongue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like snowflakes almost in there.
Yes. It is a boozy snowflake.
Yeah, at the same bar that I had mentioned, Holy Ghost, they have a gin cocktail that's shaken for 5 minutes. So they have a machine that shakes the cocktail. I'm not sure exactly what that does to it because I'm not a bartender, but I had it. It was delicious. So yeah, the shaking versus the stirring, that's a real deal thing.
It is.
Perfect. All right, well, we're already here. We're at the dessert. We've had a lot of different things. all inspired by wonderful moments in movies. But we're at the part that people either love it or hate it. I am definitely a more savory person than dessert person, so I'm excited to see what we've chosen for this situation. So please, Sarah, what is your dessert?
Oh, dang, you said savory, and then I was like, oh, I had an idea, but I'm not. I'm going to stick with what I originally had, because I do occasionally like a sweet. So I'm going to go with the key lime pie in Shape of Water, because I think that scene is so sad and I just think that it's a beautiful scene in that, but that pie is atrocious looking. Like, let's just be real, it's like neon green.
Yes.
Um, but it's like such a memorable
Mhm.
dessert moment, and they're actually eating it more for breakfast because of the sleep schedule that they're on. But I think that it's a very sweet moment between the characters of the film, and I really loved it. I love that movie so much. It's such a, it's such a like romantic fairy tale with monsters, and even monsters deserve love.
Yes,
Creatures, I should say, because he's not really a monster. He's a creature. The
sure.
humans are the monsters.
He's very much a creature. Also, I was recently at a restaurant and had key lime pie. It's a delicious dessert. Like
It is,
the
and it's
bright
good for
acidity of it is like perfect. It's like a great way to end a meal for sure.
it's a good palate cleanser, and it also is not too sweet if it's
No,
done
it's
properly.
tart.
Like
Yeah.
it should be really tart,
Mm-hmm.
and like, so it's if you're not a sweets fan, and this is how I am. I like pies. I like fruit
Mm-hmm.
desserts. Anytime we go to a restaurant and we get dessert, I'm like, oh, give me the fruit. My husband's like, give me the chocolate. And I'm like, oh no, too
Yeah,
much
yeah, yeah,
sweet. It's
yeah.
too rich. Give me whatever lemon dessert you have going on, because that's what I want.
Yeah, we were at our friend Gregory Gorday's restaurant Con here in Portland, voted restaurant of the year last year. Anybody? And their food was like great. Of course, it's a wonderful Haitian restaurant. But he was out of town, but he knew we were there, and so either he or his, I don't know, there's like a power friendship, and the other person was there also, and so they sent out all 7 desserts from the restaurant.
Holy
And
cow.
yeah, and so the first 2 hit the table, and my wife and I were like, "That is so kind. Like that's too kind." And then then 2 more hit the table, and we were like, "Okay, well." And then the next one, and then we were like, "Oh, this," and other people were looking at us like, "Those people have a problem." And like, and the thing is, they're all vegan and gluten free,
Oh
um,
wow.
and
That's awesome.
every single thing was unbelievably delicious. There was a thyme cream, like a
Ooh.
super light cream on this little cookie situation. And I've never had anything like that. I don't even know how you do that. It was so herbaceous and awesome and ethereal. And like every single dessert, you tried it and you were like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've tasted. Then I tried the next one and I was like, this is the best thing I've tasted. It was like a fried donut ball situation that was sort of like an apple crumble, but crispy, unbelievable. It's like, the second I say something like I'm not a dessert person and then I try a dessert from somebody that's like a high caliber, it's like I go, I completely understand why people love this. This is delicious, but I just eat too much of the savory stuff, It's like
Yeah.
by the
By the
time you
time dessert hits, I'm like,
I'm
I'm too full.
yeah, I'm done. I should have stopped like 19 bites ago and I didn't cuz everything was great. But yeah, if you want great desserts, Con restaurant here in Portland, even just creep their Instagram. It's unbelievable. Super great. But I didn't go with a sweet dessert for myself. Instead, I went with the sort of cheese course. So I went with a scene from The Borrowers in 1997. Uh, children's author Mary Norton storybook creations. 4-inch tall family of borrowers who live among humans and co opt their possessions. There's a crooked lawyer in the movie, and that's the scene I'm talking about specifically, where John Goodman receives what can only be described as a cheese shower. So I'm going to get out of my bubble bath of champagne and just receive a cheese shower in the middle of the restaurant, just ensuring I'm the most disgusting person on the planet. And so that's what I want. After my champagne bath, I'm going to go with the cheese shower from The Borrowers in 1997.
I'm surprised you didn't go with a cheese course from like Mad Heidi.
I thought about Mad Heidi at first, and then I was like, no, I don't know. I didn't think you were going to pick it, but I also just was like,
I almost did. I
oh,
almost
really?
did a cheese
Okay.
course for Mad Heidi.
Okay.
It was my second choice.
When I was trying to find like cheese in film specifically, I was looking and Mad Heidi kept coming up, so I was like, I'm not going to choose that one. And then I got to The Borrowers and was like, the cast for that movie is ridiculous. Like Hugh Laurie's in it, John Goodman, like all these different people. And then it's like this weird 1997 forgotten film. But the second I saw John Goodman get showered in cheese, I was like, that's the one.
You're like, sold.
Done.
Isn't it the same story as The Secret World of Arrietty?
Yeah, or the cartoon The Littles from the 80s. They're all the same. It's all the same story.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's one that my daughter wasn't in on. Like, she thought The Secret World was all right. She loves Spirited Away. That's her number one. Then probably Ponyo, maybe Ponyo Totoro Tide, then Howl's Moving Castle. But Spirited Away was like her jam when she was little. Like, that was a big one. So then as I branched out and showed her other movies, they just couldn't live up to how great those other films are. So,
Howl's did not used to be like one of my favorites.
takes
And
time.
then like it was in like my top 5. Like it was good.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, like this last year, I've been like, oh, it's like my number 2 favorite now.
Oh, yeah.
Oops.
I love that.
Who knew?
Was there anything that you have left on the table?
Oh, I do have one main course that I do want to talk about.
Yeah, what is it?
Carrie did a recipe on this one and I love it so much. And it was another one of my favorite episodes that we've done. And that's Annie's meatloaf from Misery.
Nice. Yes.
And the secret ingredient is Spam. I love that scene where she's talking to, James Caan's character and she's like telling him about this meatloaf and he clearly does not care.
Right.
And then the fact that it's got Spam in it and you could just see like him just shuddering internally, gosh. But I will say Spam is actually pretty delicious in the right ways. It's really good. I love it in rice. Like Spam fried rice is delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Spam musubi is amazing. But it has to have like the crisp. Like any preparation you make, it has to be super crisp.
Yeah.
And so, but that's one of my favorites. I went back and forth on that with the main dish, but I had to do my cheeseburger.
Yeah, to build off that point, I think most things, if you try it prepared really well, even if it's not for you, you can understand like why people like it. Like, we were at a restaurant called St. Jack here in Portland. I think it was for an anniversary. And so he was whipping out some, like, French specials. And so he did, like, a blood cake situation. And for that, you put, like, a metal ring on the pan and you ladle this, like, something. And it barely solidifies into what I would call not a cake. And then it's, like, served on the plate and garnished with all these things. And my brain was like, I don't like pairing those two words. Blood and cake. No, thank you.
So blood pudding's not your jam?
No, either any of those. Any blood anything sounds pretty bad.
I will say blood pudding with like a traditional like Irish or British breakfast. Top notch.
Yeah.
Especially if you get it done right.
Yeah. And that's the thing with this. Like, I tasted it and I was like, my brain had to get past all the Western food profiles that I was trying to be like, this is going to be gross, this is going to be this texture, this is this. It was none of those things. It was very hard for me to even discern what it was. It's also like heavily spiced, I think, with like cardamom, cloves, situations like that. And I loved it. I was like, this is incredible. But I was also having it prepared right in front of me by a chef that I greatly respect. So it's like that kind of did some heavy lifting there. I wasn't like just randomly somewhere, but yeah, I think that, if you're ever curious, that's how the first time I had oysters, of course, but like escargot, like I had mentioned, I was like,
escargot is so good.
It's so good,
but
good. I looked at it and was like, no, and it really was like the red wine demi-glace was doing a lot of heavy lifting for the dish, but I just had
See, I've never had it prepared that way. I've always had it prepared like, because my mom used to make it when I was growing up.
Oh, wow.
And she would do butter and like shallots.
Yeah, classic.
And then serve it with like crusty French bread.
Yes, I had it that way, yeah.
That's just like how I grew up eating it. Like,
yeah, so the first time we had it, there was a restaurant, it's not here anymore, but Chef Patrick McKee, who has a different restaurant called Dame now, he served it with bone marrow, a red wine demi-glace, and then the escargot is kind of like swimming in that demi-glace. So I had like bone marrow and, escargot.
Oh, that's so rich.
Yeah, and then you had the toast, and you're putting that on the toast, and it blew me away how because they taste sort of foresty, sort of moss-like almost, and then you have the creaminess of the marrow, and this is sounding more horrific than any of the courses, but it was unbelievable. It's so good. And I always think it's funny too that chefs, unlike the one in the movie The Menu, all the chefs I've ever met are very like normal, down to earth, super kind, and they always say things just like, "Oh, that's nothing," and you're like, "No, like, how did you make this crazy fortified sauce?" And they're like, "It's not a big deal," and you're like, "It is. It's actually really impressive." Like, I don't.
I think I will say that like with the menu, especially, I think you are the type of clientele that they like, whereas you're not like the influencer. You're not going in there demanding a free meal. You're not,
No, yeah, no.
and I think that's where you get this jaded nature, because I've seen both sides. Like I have a lot of chef friends here locally from when we were doing restaurant coverage, and a lot of them loved the menu, and they're like, yeah, I get it.
Oh, no,
Like
yeah.
I wouldn't go kill people, but yeah, I get it. And so they all really like connected to it.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, and I, if you go listen to my episode on the menu, I won't tell you all my reasons why, but I think that the chef is actually the anti-hero of the film. And you can go listen to Final Girls Feast and listen to my hot take on why I don't think he's as bad as they all say. But yeah, I think you are one of the nice ones. And so chefs know that and appreciate that. And so
I think I'm also just lucky in the people that I've met in Portland. I mean, all the chefs have been super, super kind, except for like maybe one, and they don't have a restaurant anymore.
and that's why.
Yeah, maybe. But I have, chefs that love that movie, that love The Bear.
Yeah, I haven't finished that show. I've only seen like the first couple episodes.
We loved the first season, and Sarah and I both really didn't like the second season, and I know tons of people that absolutely loved it. So it's like, it's not one of those things. I, of course, am never telling people not to watch things, but like, it hits people differently, and we also have very warm feelings for all of our chef buddies, and so we're just like, I don't know, we'll focus on that stuff. But I know especially people in the industry, which we're not. Like we have a food business that operates very differently than restaurants. We do have to deal with customers and customer service, but it's a completely different way. I mean, there are similarities, but it's
They're not sitting in front of you while you're preparing it.
They're not. They're
your
sitting.
product.
They're trying it in front of us and telling us to our faces. But other than that, even that 99% of it is people saying the nicest possible things, and then the 1%, it's very funny because they clearly aren't used to the fact that the person has made something is standing right in front of them. And so when people say something like, "Yo, this tastes like dirt," you're really just like, "Oh." Okay.
You're like, thanks.
I'm like, that's the ginger. And some and some people find it earthy, so you're not wrong. And that's a real one. And when it happened, my wife just started laughing, and the guy's girlfriend was horrified. But then she started laughing because we were laughing, and then we sussed it out that it's the ginger. It was a very.
I mean, if it was beets, I probably would avoid it like the plague because I hate beets.
Same.
My husband and I both hate beets. Like, there's not much in this world that either of us will say we hate, and we agree on the two big ones. It's eggplant and beets. And both of us we'll always give it a shot. Like if it's a prefix menu or something, I'm never going to be like, can I get a substitution?
Same.
I'm not like that, but I just don't like them. I think they taste like dirt. They're foul to me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's genetic. Maybe it's like a cilantro situation. Like we're going to find out in 20 years that beets are a genetic thing. And because I know people who love them.
Yeah. Oh, my family does. My daughter will eat a jar of pickled beets. But I am not that person. That being said, I was at one of our chef buddies, same person, Ryan, that I talked about, No to Grow. His wife's parents are from Russia, and his mother-in-law made a salad of 3 different colored beets. And it was like a heavily vinegared situation, and it was super bright and acidic and didn't taste like the earth, and I could not believe what I was eating. I was just like, this is crazy, because my brain's being like, this is going to be awful. And it was super, super good. That being said, the beet course I really want to tell you about is we have a chef here, Justin, that had worked at a restaurant called Castagna. Now they have a natural wine bar called OK Omens, and he does cool, like, super chefy stuff and very approachable food as well. But he did a dish that was their steak tartare situation for a little bit. So it was the steak tartare. It was dressed in I don't even know what, but also mixed in there were beets that he had charred so much that they were black on the outside, and it tasted like a marshmallow that you roasted over a fire.
Interesting.
And the inside was so super, like, almost airy, almost. I don't know what preparations they did exactly. I know that it was definitely soaked in, like, a vinegar of some sort to remove some of the earthiness. But then that charring part, that made it almost like a s'more type situation. It was unbelievable. It just transformed the entire ingredient, and I mourn it because it's not on the menu anymore. And I'm always
We
like,
one time had beets we liked at a restaurant that is no longer
one
open here.
time. Yeah.
And they did like a roasted beets dish, but it had like this creamy sauce over it.
Yeah, okay.
And that was good. But they were really roasted, really charred.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And they were pretty good. But I have never since had like my mom used to make beet borscht.
Oh, yeah. Too beady.
Smells cabbage borscht and beet borscht. It's like the biggest deception ever. It smells amazing. You smell it cooking and you're like, wow, this is gonna be amazing. And then you take a bite and it's the worst thing you've ever consumed. And oh, my mom loved it. And I just
yeah.
Nope. Big fat bucket of nope for me.
I could do without it. And your eggplant situation, 100% correct. One time I had eggplant, and again, same thing. It was like marinated into something, burnt into something. Like you put it on toast with something else. So it was like mostly tasted like lemon. You didn't even really need it there. And every other time I've eaten it, I'm like, this is the worst vegetable.
It's just a sponge. It's a flavorless sponge.
It's dreadful.
And I've had it twice where I liked it. Once was at Disneyland at California Adventure at Lamplight Lounge. They have a ratatouille dish.
Okay.
But it's got so much other stuff in it that you can't really discern what the eggplant is.
Right.
So there you go. There's that. And then I do like Japanese eggplant tempura.
Okay, yeah, no, I could see that.
And it's because Japanese eggplant is not as like the flesh of it.
Yeah.
It's usually cut thinner for starters. It's not like these giant like slabs of eggplant.
I think it's smaller and longer too, so I think it's less watery, spongy.
It's not as dense.
Yeah.
My mom used to try to, I say try, but she actually did it. She used to make moussaka all the time because she loved it, and I thought it was awful. Like every time I was like, no, stop, Mom. I do not like this. And I'd eat the beef only. I would never eat the eggplant, and it was just, ugh. I'm not an eggplant person. No. I can't do it. I just can't.
Well, I think we got to the heart of the eggplant situation for both of us.
Absolutely.
And I've never seen eggplant in a horror movie that I can think of, which is...
I feel like I've got to have seen it.
You have to. You have a whole collection. It's very impressive.
I've got to have seen it in something.
Well, tag me on that. Can you run through your menu quickly?
Yes. So we had the Noah's Manhattan from Fresh. That was my kickoff beverage.
Yes.
We had the shrimp cocktail from Beetlejuice as my starter. We did the ramen from Ponyo as my soup. We did the cheeseburger from the menu. Well, the perfect cheeseburger from the menu as my main. Served with a side of boiled potatoes from the Old Dark House. Shout out to old-timey movies with bland food. And then my optional beverage was the hallucinogenic floral lemonade tea drink from Midsummer. And dessert was key lime pie from The Shape of Water.
Oh, fantastic. I went with bathtub-sized champagne from Dumbo. And then I moved into my soup being the tteokbokki, the spicy Korean rice cake. Then I had the slug salad from Slugs. And then the Soul Pizza from Nightmare on Elm Street 4, followed by French fries from The Hitcher. And then my beverage was the Vesper Martini, and my dessert being a cheese shower from The Borrowers. I left one thing on the table, and it was very hard for me not to choose it, but I kind of had sort of aspects of it in other dishes, and that was Cheddar Goblin from Mandy. I was like, it's not really a soup. Do I want it as a main? But I had it as just a panic button. I was like, if Sarah chooses anything that's like, that I could put this in, I've got Cheddar Goblin in my back pocket. So, yeah.
I mean, neither of us chose guacamole from Cannibal Women in the Avocado Jungle of Death.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm kind of like disappointed that neither of us, I had it on my list. It was my backup starter in case you did the shrimp cocktail, but I could have also gone with the clam dip from the same movie from The Opposing Tribe.
Oh, wow. You've seen that way more than I have. I saw that once in high school, I think.
Oh, that movie is a riot. It is literally Bill Maher not acting.
Right. I know.
It's just Bill Maher being Bill Maher. I think he only acted when he was being nice.
Yeah, well, that's probably accurate. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Avocado Jungle of Death. It's been a minute. I'll have to check it out. Maybe. Perfect. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining me on this strange concept episode. I asked other people to join us, and no one understood what I was talking about. I'm like, it's food from other movies, and they're like, I don't know what you're saying. But that they just watch movies differently. I know when I started this podcast and I was thinking about jobs, suddenly I'm watching movies differently because I'd be like, I like this movie. What is that? Did that person have a job? Can I talk about this movie on the podcast? And then, same thing I'm sure with you and food. It starts to be like exciting when you see food in it or can relate food to it.
I can't tell you how many movies that I'll be watching and then I will pause and text Carrie and be like, oh my gosh, we have to do this movie. That happened with The Night Books.
Oh,
because
yeah.
there was a ton of food in it. I got really excited. And I was like, we are canceling. I don't even remember what we had planned. I'm like, we're doing Night Books instead. And she was like, okay. And then watched it and we both ended up loving it. And so it ended up being perfect.
Yeah.
So
it was great.
I get it.
Could you please tell everyone one more time where they can find you now that they've heard all about your lovely food picks?
Yes, I am at Spooky Sarah Says on all social media. Also, you can find the podcast Final Girls Feast wherever podcasts are found, pretty much. We are also Geeks Who Eat. Geeks Who Eat is trying to start TikTok, not successfully because I'm old, but it's Geeks Who Eat everywhere except for the website, which is 2geekswhoeat.com. And that's because some jackhole has the name geekswhoeat.com and won't let it go and has never let it go since 2015. So that is my rage. That's going to be my villain origin story. And so 2 geeks, like the number 2, geekswhoeat.com. And yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Another movie I went to a bunch of times but didn't pick anything from is Blood Diner.
I feel like I need to give that movie another chance. I watched it and I wasn't really like all that impressed with it. Like I just kind of thought it was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I watched it, I wasn't used to watching movies like that. So it's definitely one that I'm like, I need to give this one another shot.
Yeah.
But I will say Blood Feast is a hot mess.
Yeah, I like Jackie Kong's movies. They are very culty, very quirky. She made a dirty exploitation-y horror movie as grimy as any of the men were doing at the time, and I think that she deserves mad respect for that. And it's got some funny plays on food in it. I saw it as a 13-year-old, so it's very hard for me to separate myself from when my friend Aaron and I sat down and watched that, and we were like, this is the craziest thing we've ever seen. You can't really... I'm an unreliable narrator in that situation, but I love it.
It's on my list to give another shot to. I think going in and knowing what to expect, I will enjoy it more.
Yeah, I mean, I have an autographed copy, so I don't even know what I'm saying. I love it. But thanks again. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I hope that people find your podcast if they haven't already, and as well check out all the food stuff. Is the photography, the creativity, the earrings that you made for the menu or that were made with, it's just, you're doing very, very cool, very fun and unique things, and I hope to see more of it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VH Us.